All right, let's call the meeting to order, please. Good evening, all. This is the meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. The time now is 7:32 p.m. This meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge is being held remotely and recorded via Zoom due to Borough Council Chambers unavailability and is in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act and associated regulations. Notice of this remote meeting was published in the Bergen Record on October 6, 2022, posted on the front doors of Borough Hall and posted on the borough's website. The notice included the dial-in and login information necessary for public participation and access to this meeting remotely. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was made available on the borough's website near the posting of the meeting notice and included the dial-in and login information. During the public comment period of this meeting, if you would like to make a public comment, please press the raise hand button on Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand. The board will address you by name or by the last 4 digits of your telephone number. You may mute and unmute yourself by pressing the microphone icon on Zoom or dialing *6 on your telephone keypad. You must state your name and address clearly prior to making a public comment. With that, I'll turn it to Ms. Steinle. If you would kindly call the roll, please.
All right. Mr. Mayor,
Here.
Mr. Caslin,
Here.
Ms. Boland,
Here.
Mr. Merman,
Here.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Here.
Mr. Cray,
Here.
Mr. Kellyan,
Here.
Councilman Kanigo.
Present.
I did see Mr. Gibbons earlier, but I think he was the one who dropped off for connection issues, so he might be a little late. Mr. Esposito is absent. And Mr. Bastide.
Here.
Also here is the board planner, Mr. Behrens, board engineer, Mr. Costa, and myself.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Steinle. All right, our first agenda item this evening is under the approval of minutes. We have a draft set of minutes for our meeting of September 27, 2023. The draft minutes were circulated to the board for review prior to this evening's meeting. Open to the board for comments or questions regarding the draft minutes.
Chris, I'm sorry. Chris, I'm sorry. Could you just speak up a little bit? Your audio is very low.
Sorry about that. Anybody have the comments on the September 27th, 2023 minutes that were circulated? I think, Mr. Merman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes and I think they're fine. I have no corrections.
Okay. Any other comments on the board? Okay, I will look for a motion on approval of the minutes, please.
Motion to
approve. Okay, I think I had Mr. Cray as a first and Mr. Kellyan as a second.
All right. And Mr. Gibbons has arrived via telephone, I believe. And for these minutes, just the councilman and Mr. Bastide were absent. So we can do an all in favor.
Okay. With those exclusions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved for the 27th. Thank you, everyone. Excuse me. The next item, agenda item this evening is a discussion regarding signage that was part of the 5 Flowers application that was heard at our last meeting. Ms. Steinle?
Yes. So as part of the prior application for 101 Midland Avenue, which was the former Dunkin' Donuts on the corner. They had previously been approved for 2 directional monument signs at the ingress and egress. The applicant confirmed that they're keeping those directional signs, but they're going to insert their own arrows into the display to indicate the entrance and exit. And they included a proposed rendering on October 16th that showed what the directional signs will look like. In addition, they're going to change the font, the text and the font on the awnings over the windows. But since the board doesn't regulate the actual text of the signs, they're free to do that. I just incorporated those changes into the resolution. So on page 2, I included the rendering that was submitted on October 16th as one of the application documents. On page 3, paragraph 10, there is an addition to the resolution that says that the text will be amended in the awnings based on what was submitted on October 16th. Then on page 6, the number 1 at the very bottom of the page, the font got mixed up, so I fixed that. So it's just a 1. And then page 7, paragraph 8, I neglected to include the fact that the board was granting a waiver for the existing undersized ADA parking stall on the property. So I've included that in the resolution. And I've also included language about the October 16th rendering that was submitted for the directional signs. And if the directional signs are removed and replaced, then additional approvals will be required. So those were all the changes. Nothing too substantive, just clarifying things that were missed. So if you have any questions.
Open to the board, questions, comments on either the rendering or the draft resolutions that were circulated. Okay, your silence being golden, I will look for a motion on the resolution, please.
So moved. Gibbons.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Boland. Ms. Steinle, when you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Kellion.
Yes.
There we go. Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
and that motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. So that also covers our memorialization of the Five Flowers Corp. Mr. Syed Isfahani, doing business as Human Being. Property there was 101 Midland Avenue, River Edge, block 206, lot 3. That takes us on our agenda to the next item this evening under completeness review. The applicant is Dale Talday. Property is 200 Valley Road. It's block 31 and block 1104. There's an application for the relocation of an air conditioning unit at the rear of the house and expansion of the existing patio area, including rear stairs and landing. Proposed lot coverage, improved lot coverage will be a conforming. There's actually a typo here, I believe. It should be reflected as 42% based on Mr. Costa's report. Ms. Steinle?
Yes, thank you. Prior to this meeting, I reviewed the proofs submitted by the applicant and found them to be sufficient for the board to hear the application tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Behrens, good evening.
Good evening. And in addition, I reviewed the application materials. And as suggested, the application is merely to relocate the air conditioning units and expand the existing patio. So the board has the patio plan. So I believe the board has information sufficient to proceed this evening.
Okay, Mr. Costa?
Mr. Chairman, I concur with what Mr. Behrens just said. It's up to the board if they want to go forward.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right.
Mayor, thank you for bringing me in tonight. Thanks.
You're welcome. Why did you come in through the through that portal? Did you not get the link for the direct panel? Mr. Costa?
Mayor, I had trouble hearing you. I apologize.
So I'm just curious if there's a problem we need to address. Was there a problem coming in through as the panelist? Did you get the link? Or because
I did, actually, I just turned on the computer. I was looking at something else. I went into the River Edge website and just came in that way.
Oh, all right. I just want to make sure there was nothing wrong on our side.
No, absolutely not.
All right,
The
good.
problem was on this side.
All right, thank you.
All right. Questions from the board? Okay, there being none, I will look for a motion on the completeness of this application, please.
So moved.
All right, I think I had Gibbons, Mr. Gibbons first. There a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cray.
All right, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Bastide.
Yes.
All right, the motion passed.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Our next agenda item under completeness review this evening, the applicant is Nimesh Patel. The property is 315 Van Saun Drive. This is lot 6 in block 1106. The application proposes replacement of a previously existing rear patio with a new raised patio, construction of a new front portico, and seeks variances for non-conforming front yard setback, side yard setback, improved lot coverage, and increase in lot coverage. Steinle?
Yes, prior to this meeting, I reviewed the proofs submitted by the applicant and found them to be sufficient for the board to have jurisdiction to hear the application tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Behrens?
I also reviewed the application materials, and they appear to be complete for the board to proceed this evening.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Costa?
Ditto. Same thing, Mr. Chairman. It's up to you guys.
All right, thanks very much. Comments from the board? Questions? Okay, at this time, I'll look for a motion on the completeness of this application, please.
To accept.
Mr. Cray, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Arkelian. Ms. Steinle?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
yes,
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
and Mr. Bastide.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thanks, everyone. One housekeeping item just before we move on into our next item under new business this evening. I am going to impose a curfew this evening of 9:45. Okay. Next item on the agenda this evening under new business, applicant is Dale Talday. Property is 200 Valley Road, lot 31 in block 1104. The application seeks approval for relocation of an air conditioning unit at the rear of the existing house and expansion of the existing patio area, including rear stairs and landing, resulting in an increase of improved lot coverage to a non-conforming 42%. I believe the applicant is here this evening.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening.
Evening.
Ms. Stein?
Hello. I will swear you in, so if you please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you, and please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record.
Dale Talde, ALETALDE, 200 Valley Road.
And I'm Agnes Talde, TALDE, AGNES.
Thank you.
Great. Good evening. Would you, for the board's benefit, would you kindly provide us a summary of what your application seeks approval for, please, and the work you're going to be doing?
We would just like to we'd like to add to the existing pavers in the backyard, increasing it to the 42% that is shown. And move existing air conditioning units over?
We just wanted more space so we can, currently our kids' water table and their play table and our dining equipment are all in that little block patio. And if we had a little bit more patio on each side, it would allow us to spread out a little bit. So just to almost the length of the house in the back.
And this is Tom Barron's board planner and / zoning officer. If I could add, I guess, a few points of clarification for the benefit of the applicant. I just recalculated the proposed coverage. And so I know my initial letter of non-compliance or letter of denial stated that they were over with a coverage of 42.6%. It seems like they actually are closer to the 40% figure. So I guess I'll ask the applicant, did you guys modify the plan at all from when it was first submitted?
We initially applied 42, but we got nervous, so we made it smaller to 40.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're actually asking for 40% tonight because you've modified the plan already as proposed. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so all right, thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. And so looking at the plan, obviously there's two additions to the patio. One, we'll say on the right side is 12 by 10. That translates to 120 square feet. On the left side, we have 13 by 15. That translates to 195 square feet for a grand total of 315 square feet, which represents an increase of 3.7% to the property from the current existing coverage of approximately 35.9%. So, it's probably safer we just stick with the 40% number if that's what you're asking for. But just for again, for clarification, the plan has been reduced from the original 42.6% figure. So, and again, the patio is the only real change that you're asking for, right? And it's strictly a patio that doesn't have like a kitchen or a pergola or just a flat patio?
Yes,
Just a flat
it's
patio.
just the pavers. We're just matching what we currently have.
Okay. So, board members, that's the crux of the application, if there are any questions.
Okay, Mr. Costa?
I think that was the only question, because I think Sutton had 40% originally, Tom. Or was chairman through the chair?
It came in at 42.6, and I think they
42%.
scaled it back at some point. I just don't know when that occurred.
And again, we can, if the board approves it, we can deal with everything else through the soil moving ordinance, through the building department. As far as additional coverage with the drainage, any drainage requirements.
Okay, so their the materials that were submitted then are reflective of the 40%, Tom, is what's being applied for?
Right. So the materials that are currently online, and I believe the materials that the board members received include an existing property survey, which shows the existing conditions, and there's also a plan which shows those two patio appendages, again, one 12 by 10 and another 13 by 15. I think the original plan that came into the building department was, a bit larger than that, by some amount of square feet, and hence it's been reduced. And it sounds like they recognize that 42% might have been too much of an ask, so you went and tried to reduce it as best you can. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for that. Let me open it to the board then for questions, if I may. I'm going to start this evening, Mr. Cray, if I may, with you, please.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for clearing that up, Tom, because I was confused because your letter had 42%. Actually, I only have one comment. Actually, it's just that the frontage figures on the application for the property description shows 31.39 feet, which I believe is incorrect. It's somewhere under 68 feet, something like that. Doesn't really impact it, but I just didn't know if that should be corrected for the record.
Which one is that, Mr. Chair?
If you look in their application, it would be on page 6 of the PDF.
Yes.
Where it shows the frontage and the lot size and depth and the setbacks, etc. The frontage is listed at 31.39 feet, which I think is the front yard setback.
Yes.
So I think the number I'm going from memory was like 68 feet, something like that, as far as the frontage.
Yeah.
I believe Mr.
Yeah,
Cray is correct.
63.
It's actually, the front yard setback is 31 feet and change, and the
Yeah.
approximate lot width is
It's 60.
greater than that, but, right.
Right. Yeah, it's 63.9 roughly. So I don't know if that needs to be corrected, just so that the application is accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowe. Ms. Boland.
No, I appreciate the applicant coming under the 40% that we, which is usually our threshold. Before I realized it was wrong, I was trying to figure out where they could reduce it. So, I'm pleased with being under 40.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibbons?
No, the only question I was going to ask is the discrepancy there, but I have no issues.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Pfeffer?
I'm good. Nothing from me.
Okay, Mr. Arkalian?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bustede?
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Councilman?
Sorry, Mr. Behrens, what's the standard? Our ordinance says 35%, right?
35 is the maximum, correct?
All right. So we've been talking about 40%, which is 5 over the maximum, right?
Correct.
All right. Can you remind me? And I genuinely don't remember. What's the standard that we're supposed to look at for when there is that increase? What are the circumstances that the board is supposed to look at for granting the increase?
Right, so you're referring to, I guess, the statutory test for granting variance relief. So for the applicant's benefit, there are two types of variances that the board can grant in this case. One is referred to as a C1 or physical features test, whereby a board can grant variance relief if there's some sort of hardship impacting the property. And a hardship could be a dimensional issue, it could be a lot area issue, or some other unique factor of the property. The other type of variance is what's called a C2 public benefit variance. That's not exactly the right word phrasing, but it escapes me. But in any event, you have to demonstrate that the public benefits of granting the variance relief outweigh any detriments. Is essentially the two-pronged test that an applicant has to address.
So which one are we being asked to address here? Is there?
Well, to give, an overview of the property dimensions, it looks like it's a conforming lot. I think the lot area is about 8,300 square feet. So it's not necessarily a dimensional thing. Obviously most properties in town, have a patio or some sort of rear yard amenity. So it's a question, I guess the question to the applicant is, you're proposing a patio of a certain size. Can you help the board understand why you've arrived at the size that you've added at, in terms of, functionality or otherwise?
Well, if you look at the photo, you'll see that once the stairs lead out, it just leads to a quite small little area that's covered with pavers.
Mhm.
So with our current dining table and our kids' water table and our kids' craft table that's out there, it just feels very cramped. It feels like a lot of wasted space to not be able to extend our patio on inside, which would look more normal. Like if our currently patio looks abnormally small.
Mhm.
So we're just asking to extend it so it becomes more of a usable patio for our family. And I think that's it. It doesn't look extreme. It looks like it should be that size. So the size that we're asking to expand to.
So look, I'm not trying to throw any wrenches into the works here, right? It would be easy for me to just say, yes, everybody said yes and yes. And it would be just as easy for me to say, no, our statute says something. There's a reason. I know that we have paid a lot of money because of flooding issues recently, fixing those things. And we've talked about overbuilding. So like, I'm about to be off this board and maybe I'll rejoin one day if the mayor wants, maybe not. But you guys are staying on this, and this is an issue that over the past years that I've been on this board has been a recurrent issue. And I know that we have issues with the flooding. So if we're looking at actually the standards, and with all due respect, I understand that they want a bigger patio. I don't see that the standards have been met. If we want to make 40% the threshold, then maybe we should meet as a board, or you should meet as a board at some point and talk about increasing the ordinance and making that a threshold, so we don't have to keep going through this. I mean, it seems quite obvious that she reduced from 42 to 40 because at some point somebody said 40 is probably going to get approved. So if that's the check mark, then let's just make it the check mark. Why are we still doing this? So that's my thought process on it. I'll listen to everybody else vote and I'll vote at the last moment when I am called, probably based on everybody else's vote, because like I said, I'm not trying to interfere with this, but like, where are we going with this? Is 40% the threshold now? Like, you know, does that mean that anybody who comes in with 38% is automatically like a yes? Then why are we even meeting if that's the case? Those are my questions, and I say that with all due respect. I think you're all doing a fantastic job. But in hearing this, you know, last time somebody came right around this 40% level, we gave them a hard time, and I think we voted no. So I think we should be consistent.
Thank you, Councilman.
I had a question. Could you speak to the drainage on your property? Do you get pooling? Do you have any issues currently?
None. Our actually, when our builder created, he leveled off the back completely. So we have no flooding. We have some pumps in, and we also have a generator. So we've had no issues at all. And we don't notice any amongst our neighbors either. We talk to them quite frequently.
Okay. I think Mr. Merman.
Couple of small comments. Most of my concerns have been answered, but since you were talking about the drainage, I think Mr. Costa's report indicates that three seepage pits exist. So that could be a matter of record. In fairness to the applicant, I would introduce the fact that the stair coming down to the patio level bifurcates the patio total. And in a way, that is a hardship because you don't have the totality of usage that is contiguous. That's all in one piece. So in fairness to them, I think the board should consider that. I think that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Merman. I think all my questions were answered as well. So at this time, I will look for a motion to open to the public.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Cray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Boland. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, at this time, we're now open to the public on this application only. This is the Taldi application, 200 Valley Road. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to be heard on this application only?
Yes, we do have some individuals here. So Donna, I'm gonna allow you to talk. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi there. My name is, okay, sorry. My name is Donna Dapper. I live at 301 Princeton Drive. I really appreciate the issues that Councilman Shinigo raised. This area does have a lot of flooding. I do not live super close to this house, but I do think it is really important for the board to consider all of these things. This area does flood. We are built on a swamp. The other thing I think that doesn't come up in the application, but we have a lot of new builds or rebuilds, second story additions, as I'm sure you know. And I think the builders have gotten very smart at coming in right around that 35–36% coverage. That's why your patio is the size it is. It's probably why you don't have a walkway down the side of your house. When they made your double driveway with pavers, they knew what they were doing. I just wanted to weigh in and share that as somebody who lives in the neighborhood and I watch these houses go up. I have been a resident for almost 31 years. And I don't think the size of the patio is a hardship. I also think the flooding that comes off of the patios, maybe it's not there, maybe it's not affecting your neighbors, but I hope the board does not automatically just raise that 35% to 40%. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have another individual. Lori. And if you'll please state your name and your address for the record.
Yes, my name is Lori Sandella. I am a resident of 285 Princeton Drive, 26 years in River Edge. So as was spoke about previously, Valley floods. I think it was about 2 years ago. The people on Valley had water in their cars because of flooding. It was not a power outage. It was flooding. Their cars got flooded right around the corner from me. The area itself is low. There's a street called Lakeview. My understanding is we are in the bottom of where the lake was. If you dig in your yard, the soil is sandy and clay. And that is just not from me. That is from, I had a waterproofing company checking my drainage situation. The soil is sand and clay. It is not absorbent to begin with. We are in a low area. You drive from 5th from the church, it's downhill to Howland. From Lakeview, it's downhill. Parallel to Valley is Millbrook. Parallel to Millbrook is a brook. That separates us from Paramus. That is all uphill. If you actually went out to Howland, up to Forest, it's all uphill. We are in a very low area to begin with. Their property is already at the brink of what is allowed, a little bit over from what I read. And I think there's a real good reason that there's a limit. And to keep increasing that and to keep granting different variances is just becoming detrimental to the whole area, to the neighborhood. There was mention of seepage pits. I'm sure that is what is the mitigation for covering more of the soil area. I can tell you from experience walking my neighborhood, it doesn't even have to be raining. These seepage pits, I'm not saying their home, but there are other homes where the seepage pits that are in the front lawn, the water seeps up and over the sidewalks. In the winter, it turns to ice. Other times it's just sopping wet when there's no rain. So those seepage pits don't really fix the problem. Maybe it would in other areas of town. I don't believe in our neighborhood. It is a real big solution to that. As a previous speaker spoke, they are building these houses to the max allowable. I think that's why you're seeing the variances. I see houses that don't even have front walkways now because they just can't cover it with any kind of impervious material. There is mention about the AC units moving to the side of the house. I don't know what the clearance is. It seems the side on that plan with the driveway is much narrower. So now those will be between your house and your neighbor's home. So now they would have to hear that. There is a mention that in their reason for doing it is a safe area for the kids to play. From parent and grandparent experience, the grass is a lot safer for your kids than cement and pavers, believe me. So I appreciate your time listening to my concerns. It is not specific, but it is really to the neighborhood, to what I've witnessed over the years. I still witness going on. And I think we should hold to this 35%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? There is one other attendee. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand on Zoom. All right, I don't think they're interested.
Okay, at this time, I will look for a motion to close to the public, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Boland. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstain? At this time, we're now closed to the public for comment on this application. Further comments, questions from the board on this application?
I have one question, Mr. Costa, could you just give a little more information on the seepage pits you mentioned or?
Sure. And again, whenever there's additions, we ask the applicants to install seepage pits. Very rule of thumb, based on a 3-inch storm in a 24-hour period, which we've exceeded that on numerous storms recently, you need roughly 2 gallons for every square foot of impervious surface. So it's pretty simple. And I've had this conversation with some of the engineers at Boswell, and they don't believe me, but it's pretty accurate. So if you take a lot and you put 40% or 30% coverage, just use whole numbers. Take 10,000 square feet, 50% coverage, you got 5,000 square feet. Times that number by 2 gallons, you need 10,000 gallons to hold that storm. There's roughly 95% or 98% or 99% runs off the surface. Grass, roughly 25% to 35%. That's reality in a small drainage area without running modeling and all this other stuff. So in order to put in enough seepage pits to cover one single family home, you need more than that. But what's happening, you can't go back to a homeowner and say, okay, I'm going to put on a 400 square foot addition, but we want you to put in 10,000 gallons of containment. Obviously, you can't do it. And the way the rules were written, it's only the net increase in runoff, not the current increase. Now DEP, they just changed the regulations. Now you're looking at roughly 30 to 40% more based on the storm and the future analysis. And again, that's how they want to handle this. In a county like Bergen, not that I want to get on a pedestal right now, we're pretty much 90% improved. Our drainage systems hold maybe a 25-year storm at best, whether it's in the Borough River Edge, whether it's on a county road, whether it's anywhere. So by the time we catch up to where we have to catch up to, number one, I'll be long dead and gone. And it's not going to happen. The flooding, the storms are going to increase. The flooding is going to continue to increase because of the infrastructure we have in place. This community, the mayor and the council said, let's fix Voorhees. We had a pretty serious storm a couple weeks ago. Little test case. It seemed to work. It seemed to work very well. Total job is almost complete, and you'll see a little more satisfaction at that job. But you're talking about millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, and I'm done talking. And I don't think the new regulations are going to work. I don't think they're going to work in my lifetime, and quite frankly, I don't think they're going to work in my children's lifetime to fix the problems that we have out there.
And as far as this application, where we're talking about 315 square feet of additional coverage, effectively, you're saying that's 600 gallons
Correct.
impact?
If you have a 3-inch storm, which is basically a 100-year storm, 3 inches in a 24-hour period, that's a 100-year storm. Like I said, Ida in our area was roughly 7 inches in a 24-hour period. And that 7 inches came within like a 2-hour time frame. So if you look at the September 2021 storm, which was a lot of impact to our area, these things are basically designed for the 100-year storm. But again, not the entire house. So if you added up all of the homes in River Edge, the amount of storage capacity that you would need is monumental. So, and again, is this what the board needs to figure? If these people put their brick paver patio in the backyard, is that the straw that broke the camel's back? In my opinion, no. And as long as you take that, you're actually, by doing just the 600 gallons in this case, if that's what it comes out to, you're actually making it better for that area. But again, that's the mindset that's been around since I got out of school. When a gentleman by the name of Al Pagan, Joe Scupian, all of these engineers back then, that's what they wanted. There was never a regional idea to make larger detention areas regionally. It was all individual stuff. And quite frankly, I never thought it would work. And maybe 30 some odd years later, maybe I'm correct.
Bob, how are we going to know which house is the straw, though, right? Like, we're not necessarily only talking about this particular application. There's consequences, and we've heard from other residents as well. Like, which is the straw? Like, is it this one? Maybe not.
Councilman, you're managing. If this gets approved, they need to manage it. You're not managing the entire. In this case, this is a newer house, I believe, so I'd have to pull out the file on this from the they have seepage pits in. But again, I don't know if they're if they did the entire home, if they knocked it down, built a new one, and we did all of the impervious area that's going in. But I'm saying if you approve this, they need to manage the water that's going to run off this and not impact their neighbors or neighborhood. So you gotta look at it on an individual basis on anything you're increasing. But again, the storms and the data that's coming out, and again, the DEP has changed the regulations as far as stormwater management. And literally all it came down to is that all they're doing is saying you need to increase the size of the detention area by another roughly 40%.
And remind me, we increased to 35% just a few years ago, right? It was in the last 5 or 6 years,
Right.
because it was
And again,
lower beforehand.
I don't know the woman's name that came on. She's 1000% right. The builders come in, they buy the houses, they take them down to the foundation, they make the largest house possible, put in whatever amenities they need around the house, small patio, and they're roughly at 35%.
So the only way we can stop this is if we start saying no to these applications, so that people know that they can't just, and the builders know that they can't do that, right? Like,
Well,
build
I
a
don't know
house that belongs on the property and has the right size patio.
Mr. Chair,
The only way you can do that is through FAR.
on that note with the builders, and this is a discussion we've had before, it is a problem that the builders are putting these houses on at 35%. The problem is that the homeowners that purchase them don't know that they can't go bigger.
Right.
So we need to have a further conversation about this, of what we can do to prevent these houses from being not overbuilt, but built to the absolute max, because people want more backyard area than we've seen. More applications for pools and for patios. People want that backyard space more than maybe they have in the past. We need to figure out some way of limiting our builders to not allow them to be building to 35%. Because
I agree. And let me just say, I have no problem with the Tally application. Of course, I want them to have the patio like that. That's a no-brainer. I want everybody in the town to have whatever they need, but it's just that we have to look out about like this problem, and it's a problem that we see it right all over town. There's houses that 3 walls are being knocked out. There's one little piece of a wall that's left up, and all of a sudden there's like this giant mansion. We've got no real way to address it, and hopefully there will be at some point. But for what we're talking about, I'm just thinking like in the long term, like you're going to have a real tough time saying no to the next person who comes and says 40%. Come on, man. I got nothing. Like, I'm exactly like that application. So if that's what we're going down. That's the road we're going down, the standard. And, listen, Mr. Merman gave us a good reason to vote yes too, because of the stairs, right? So I'm okay with, like I said, I'm going to take my guidance from you guys, because I think this is a problem that you guys are going to have to address over the next year. And I'm just bringing it up. But I think it's a serious issue, and as much as I wanted to have this, I think that it's not just about this house; it's about every house that's coming down the pike, and this flooding issue.
I don't disagree with you, Ms. Cap. Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I think we need a bigger solution to the overall problem. That
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Pfeffer.
Yeah, I think we're in the words of the great New Jerseyan Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again. Because we've had this discussion, we need to continue to have this discussion. We've had special sessions to discuss this issue. It's really an important issue, and I think hopefully New Year's resolution 2024, we resolve it. We come down with a comprehensive overall borough-wide proposal that can be acceptable to really address this problem in a comprehensive way. But in the meantime, without having that, we have to continue to discuss each and every case on an individual basis, on the merits of each case, and exercise a certain amount of reasonableness, flexibility, neighborliness, all of those other intangible factors that come into this. Hopefully we can really, bear down and focus on coming up with a comprehensive plan that addresses the larger issue. But I don't think we're ever going to, and I don't think we really ever want to, make any particular neighbor the last straw. I just think that would be unfair. That would be harsh to those particular people, whoever they are. I think, if we reasonably conclude that this application is not going to destroy the town and is reasonable relative to all the other applicants that have come before us, then we should approve it. But that wouldn't mean that we just ignore the larger issue. We can approve this application and still resolve that it will be a top priority for this board to address the larger issues. We've already started that discussion. It just seems to have lapsed for a while. So let's get back to it.
Well, it absolutely is a critical issue, and that's the reason for the balancing test that we have here on the applications that we do here on a case-by-case basis. So, you know, we will continue to look at this and monitor this going forward. But let me pivot back to the application at hand and try to move things along. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion on the application at this point.
Are you ready, Mr. Chairman?
I am, Mr. Merman.
Okay, this is a difficult one. Regarding the application of Dale Taldy, 200 Valley Road, River Edge, block 1104, lot 31, that the motion to approve the variances for a new patio and to the maximum lot coverage of 40%, and the other recognizing the other existing variances as set forth in Mr. Costa's report in his zoning analysis. I'll make a motion that the board approve the application.
I'll second. Mr. Pfeffer.
Yeah, I think Mr. Pfeffer has a photo finish on that. Ms. Steinle, when you're ready, please.
I just wanted to confirm with the applicants that they understand that they're and are willing to work with the borough engineer regarding stormwater and runoff at during the soil movement permitting process, and if any runoff impacts the neighbors. Is that okay?
Yeah, we want to be here for a long time.
All right, that was discussed. I just wanted to confirm that. All right. So I'll do the roll. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer?
Yes.
Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Kellion?
Yes.
Councilman Kanigo?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
And Mr. Bastide?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Our next agenda item this evening, under new business is Nimesh Patel is the applicant. Property is 315 Van Son Drive. This is lot 6 in block 1106. The application proposes replacement of a previous existing rear patio with a new raised patio and construction of a new front portico. Variance is being sought for non-conforming front yard setback, a non-conforming side yard setback, increased improved lot coverage, and increased block coverage. I believe we have the applicant here.
Yeah.
Yes, with Mr. Bruno.
Mr. Bruno, okay. Good evening. Ms. Steinle?
Yes, I'll swear both of you in. If you please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
All right, and Mr. Patel, if you could please provide your address for the record.
It's 315 Van Son Drive.
All right, and Mr. Bruno, if you just provide the board with a brief background and on a brief description of your background and that your licenses are up to date.
Yes, I earned my Bachelor of Architecture degree from the School of Architecture at New Jersey Institute of Technology in 1983. I was licensed in the state of New Jersey in 1988. I have testified extensively throughout the state of New Jersey before zoning boards and boards of adjustment for a number of years. I think 4 years I served on the East Rutherford Zoning Board of Adjustment, and the last 2 years as its vice chairman.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bruno, have you appeared before our board in the past?
I don't believe I have, interestingly enough.
Okay. Any questions from the board on Mr. Bruno's background? Okay. I think any concerns about him being and his credentials being acceptable? No? All right. Mr. Bruno, if you and Mr. Patel would proceed in your application, what you're looking for from the board this evening, please.
Sure, thank you. So the project is thus, the house is currently under construction. It was a previously existing ranch style home, 1-story. The project as it stands today required no expansion of the footprint. We renovated the first floor and then added a second floor. As part of the project, although no footprint area was added, the Patels had installed two seepage pits per Mr. Costa's request or requirement. I cannot attest to the capacity of those, but I know that Mr. Costa had requested had given them, I believe, model numbers of the tanks based on the size of the existing footprint area of the home. The proposal before you this evening is to basically take the existing patio and elevate it. The Patels have elderly parents who spend time with them, and the goal was to create an elevated patio so that it would be easier for them to traverse from the inside of the house to the exterior on the patio. And we have increased it slightly in order to be able to have two risers or one tread step down to the backyard after one is on the patio. The other part of this project is to provide a front entrance portico that would not only protect and shield the house from or the entrance from the elements, but to give a safe and dry place for guests coming to the home to wait for the Patels to open the door. And also in this era of online shopping and the multitudes of packages that show up at our front door, it gives some semblance of protection. The footprint area of the proposed portico is 50 square feet. If it were 35 square feet, we would be, I believe, and Mr. Burns will correct me if I'm wrong, that we would not require a variance for the setback, because it would be within the parameters of being permitted to project. As I understand it, if it's 35 square feet or less, we can project 5 feet past the front yard setback line. We did a number of different designs and found that based on the existing width of the house, that the proposal you see before us is properly proportioned to the size and scale of the house. In Mr. Barron's letter, he mentions that regarding the lot coverage, meaning the building coverage issue of the application, that unroofed decks, unroofed porches, and unroofed patios are not included in the term accessory building or structure. But he requested that when we noticed in the paper, as well as to the property owners within 200 feet and the governmental agencies and utilities, that we noticed for that. But the board would make a determination as to whether the elevated patio would count as lot or building coverage, or simply as impervious coverage. And at this point, I'll entertain any and all questions that the board may have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Mr. Behrens, start.
Yeah, so I'll just try to break this down and reiterate a few points. Thank you, Mr. Bruno. I think that was a good overview of the plan. So I think the simplest aspect of this is the 5x10 covered front portico. Again, that's the sort of front entrance platform, which will have a roof. Mr. Bruno was correct that the borough allows an encroachment in the required front yard of up to 5 feet and no more than 35 square feet. So they meet the 5-foot extension, but they're at 50 square feet. So they technically then need a front yard setback variance. So that portico addition will be 25.7 feet to the front lot line where 30 feet is required. So that's one variance. The proposed raised patio is essentially in the same location where there was an existing patio. And so, the footprint before they began construction was not going to change. And in fact, I would have allowed them to reinstall a patio in its current location. That was what had been discussed, but they indicated they wanted to raise it for the reasons they mentioned, to have essentially straight access in and out of the house. So at that point, I thought because the property was already over 35%, that would trigger the need for an additional variance at a minimum from the coverage standpoint. And so to try to explain my letter, which is, somewhat puts some interpretation in the board's hands, I just want to explain where I was coming from. So on the one hand, the raised patio will be attached to the house. I think in the past, the borough, not just myself, but prior boards have looked at front landings as part of the building coverage. We usually don't include the stairs in that coverage, but at a minimum, the platforms. But then again, I did point to the ordinance, which does say that unroofed decks, unroofed patios, and unroofed porches do not count toward accessory building or structure calculation. So in that context, if it's attached to the principal building, should it count or not? Again, in the past, I believe it has counted under certain conditions. So again, the board can interpret that section as you'd like, and depending on the outcome of that determination would indicate the extent of variance relief. So it would indicate whether or not a combined side yard setback variance is required, because on one side, the house has a non-conforming side yard setback of 5.8 feet. And when you add that to the other side of the house, which is at 7.5 feet, give or take, the combined number is 13.7 feet, where a minimum of 18 feet is required. So that's one aspect of it. We also have the maximum improved lot coverage, where it looks like they have an existing coverage of 35.86%, which will be increased to 38.12%. And that increase is regardless of whether or not this counts as building coverage. So that's a definite variance, the 38.12%. Then finally, we have this question of if this raised patio counts toward building or lot coverage, it would increase that factor from 24.73% to 29.85%, where a maximum of 25% is permitted. So I know that was a lot to digest. So if anyone has any questions about that, I'd be glad to clarify further.
Questions from the board for Tom?
I have a question. So the 3% extra coverage, where is that other than the 50 square feet of the front?
Right.
I mean,
It's the raised, right? It's primarily the raised patio, right? So I don't know what. I see your question.
Yeah, it's the front plus the steps, the treads that we use to get from the elevated patio back down to grade. I had looked at just elevating the patio and then raising the grade up, but the lot is fairly flat, and I for a number of reasons. One, the safety of people, especially the older relatives, to step off the patio onto slope ground would not be would not be ideal. Plus, I did not want to change the drainage pattern on the site itself. Wanted to maintain the status quo so we would not be perhaps adversely affecting the neighbors. I would like to just prior to the construction, there was no seepage pit system on site, and now the seepage pit system covers the existing existing roof. So the increase of impervious that is not collected or that is not drained is only the difference between 35% and 38.12. So 3.12. So I'm just doing a quick calculation. So the net increase above what is permitted, that is permitted by ordinance, that is not being captured, is 238 square feet.
And Mrs. Boland, to answer your question, and I understand the confusion here, it is because I said that the patio would replace the existing patio. So I think at one point in time, prior to construction, it was closer to that 38% figure. Then the patio was removed. So the 35% existing coverage figure reflects the removal of the patio. And so I think the board should consider what the pre-construction coverage was, that it was closer to 38%. Even though it looks like it's currently going from 35 to 38. So that was a good observation.
Okay. That's it for me.
Any other questions for Mr. Burns?
Yeah, just to clarify, so the patio that they're proposing is basically the same size as the patio that was there?
Yeah, plus we
nearly
have a little bit
identical.
more for the treads, the stone tread to step down from the patio to the grade.
Okay, so the patio plus steps, basically, and
Right.
the other coverage then is just the front covered steps in the front of the house. So that's really where we're getting our addition.
Right, that is correct. And as I mentioned before, the size was, we looked at various different configurations, and the wider portico felt from an aesthetic standpoint, as it relates to the streetscape, felt more appropriate to the overall size and scale of the building as it sits now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Costa.
You know what, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at this, and that's why I keep turning the light on and adding up some numbers. Mr. Bruno, I think there's an error though. The existing lot coverage, if I could just go quickly over the calculation.
Sure.
So existing, 1892, that's the house, plus 26 square feet. Right, I'm gonna go slow, plus 397, plus 125, plus the patio, 304. I think you left out the 110. So your existing is actually higher. And then if I'm reading this right, basically you're adding 50 square feet for the front, and your patio is increasing by 38 square feet. And that could be, like you said, I guess the step is 1 foot, whatever the dimension of the patio is.
Right.
I think you left the 110 out.
In the existing.
If you look at the existing, you got 1892 square feet, plus 26, plus 397, plus 125, plus 304.
Oh, well, okay.
I think area of existing walkways to remain 110.
So that would put our existing at 37.3.
Correct. And I think what you're increasing is, if I got 88 square feet, and that's 38 square feet for your steps, and 50 square feet for your front.
Okay, so yeah, so the net increase is actually less than what we're showing here.
It's,
Yeah,
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
less. Your existing is higher than what you're saying. You left out 110 square.
I left out the 110, so if I take that, that would be 2,854 divided by 7650 gives us 37.3 as our existing.
Right.
And then
just-
going to
It
38.
should add up to 88, the difference should add up to 88 square feet, if I'm looking at this correct, because you have 304 that you're removing on the patio and you're adding 342. 342 minus 304 is 38.
And that's what I just came up with, yeah, the 88.
Plus 50 square feet for your front, it's 88 square feet.
80, yeah, and I came up with the same as we're doing this. So the net increase is 88.
That's what I think, but Tom, I'm throwing this back to you because you're the planner, where's the zoning guy?
I mean, I don't disagree. The individual, and this is why we ask for the itemized calculations on the plan, shows the breakdown of each individual component. So, if there was an error, whatever the numbers are, they're shown on the plans. I've reviewed a number of Mr. Bruno's plans that he's, one of the best at, providing this information. So I appreciate that. So, for the board's benefit, I think the ultimate number is, what's actually being proposed. So Mr. Bruno, can you just confirm that what the actual proposed coverage number is then?
Yeah, the actual proposed coverage is still 38.12. It's the, what's at issue is I, on my chart and in the calculations, I simply understated the existing.
Got it. Okay.
So the existing would be 37.3 instead of what I show is 35.86. Because to Mrs. Costa's point, when I did the math here, I inadvertently left out the 110 but the 110 got added to the final proposed. But it wasn't in the existing. So we have a net increase of 88 square feet.
88 square feet.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Beck, for 1 second in time, I felt like Dick Merman there for 1 second.
Yeah, so we're increasing the proposed increase is 0.82%. And prior to the Patels undertaking the construction project, there was no stormwater management on site. And now there's stormwater management on site that handles the entire that handles the entire existing footprint of the house. And what we could do is look at the I can check to see based on those the pits that have been installed if there is sufficient capacity there to plug in the portico, because the pits are in the front of the house in the front yard.
Okay. Questions from the board? I'm going to start, Ms. Boland. Any further questions?
No questions.
Okay. Mr. Arkelian?
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Gibbons?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cray?
I have one question. Is there any reason why the porch or the raised patio is going to replace the existing patio can't be pulled back that foot and then the step be flush with the perimeter of the house so that you're not adding coverage for that patio?
We could do that. I wouldn't see any prohibition to that, any practical difficulty. Sure.
Yeah, because then the only additional coverage we're dealing with would be the portico.
Correct. And I would check the and I'd work with Mr. Costa, of course, so we could check to see if the if we can if the pits would accommodate that existing excess or the proposed excess capacity, the 50 square feet.
I'd be happy to see you do that with the existing patio though.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bustede?
All good, no questions.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman?
Sorry, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Merman?
Yeah, I have, I guess at this point, one clarification on the rear patio. That little excess that seems to protrude into the side yard, is that the steps, or is that what Mr. Cray was referring to?
Yeah, that is the step. So we agree that we could slide that to the left as you look at the plan.
Okay, so we wouldn't have that appendage into the side yard then?
That is correct.
Okay, I have a few things on the portico in the front, if you want to go on to that, or you want to finish up on the rear raised patio here.
I'd be happy to answer any and all of your questions, sir.
Okay, normally we have somebody testify when they want to put on a front portico. As to the others on the street and adjacent as to lining up, that was, I guess that's part A. And part of your application is you submitted a number of photographs as to other porticos in the area. Can you
Yes.
give us some discussion on that?
Sure, be happy to. If you look at your packet, well, I would direct your attention to photograph number 3, which is the north elevation view of the residence located at 321 Van Zorn Drive. The house is fairly fairly large scale. My opinion, I believe that the portico roof is visually a bit weak for the size of the house, which speaks to one of the things that led us to propose the portico that you see before you. The next one would be photograph number 5, which is at 303 Van Zorn Drive. That is significantly larger than the one that I just discussed with you for photograph number 3. I think that that in this case, and I'm not going to speak to the physical aesthetic design, but I would speak to the scale of it, the size of it as it relates to the rest of the house. And I think that in photograph number 5, that portico is obviously larger than the 35 square feet, but it is more, even though it's larger than the 35 square feet and is more than what would be compliant with the ordinance, perhaps, it is proportionally better than the one as it relates to the house than the one on photograph number 3. Likewise, on photograph number 6, which is at 302 Van Zorn Drive, I believe, and it's my opinion, of course, that the portico there is visually weak for the as it relates to the overall size and scale of that house. Likewise, for photograph number 7 and also photograph number 8. Like I said, it's my opinion that those porticos, while they appear to be compliant with the ordinance, are visually weak for the size and scale of those houses. I mean, no disrespect, of course, to the homeowners. It's just that it's my professional opinion as an architect.
Can you speak to whether number 5, which you like the proportions of, meets the setback requirement?
That I couldn't attest to.
Because it looks like it probably does, which puts it into a different category.
Right. If it complies with the setback, then of course it would. But I'm just speaking to the size and scale of the portico as it relates to the balance of the house. The house is quite wide and likely started out in life as a ranch, as most of these, if not all of them, did. So I'm just speaking to the size and scale of it. The aesthetics, and I believe that what we've designed and presented to the board this evening will be an appropriate enhancement to not only to the house itself specifically, but to but for the streetscape as well. For passersby to go and see, to see it, and not everyone is going to look at it as critically as we are this evening, because people, when they're passing by a house, they decide in an instant whether they like it or not. They're not studying it like we are, of course, which is our obligation. Any other questions that I can answer for that?
Mr. Merman?
Yeah, one other thing, there was discussion as to whether the raised patio, how it would affect the side yard setback and so forth. I think now that we've agreed to not encroach in the side yard, that statement, and Mr. Costa's report goes away, we don't have that problem. Is that correct? There was a question by raising it, and I think Tom, you kind of referred to that also.
Yeah, so the question was, if the patio is being raised, does it now constitute building coverage, or the ordinance calls it lot coverage? Again, I referenced the one ordinance citation which says any uncovered decks, decks, porches, or patios don't count as accessory building coverage. But again, in the past, I think the board and the borough has looked at, sort of entryways, raised platforms as part of being building coverage when attached to the principal building. And so if that were the case, then there wouldn't be necessarily a setback, a single side setback issue, but perhaps an issue of the combined side yard setback, if in fact it counted toward the building coverage.
I guess my question is, does that still apply? Because it appears that sort of a side issue there is right now. I think we've looked at it, and he does require a variance on the combined, just as it is now. Correct?
The existing home does, right? Right. So
Yeah,
it's an existing non-conforming condition, right?
So you would have that anyway.
Correct. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm really leaning to is we've kind of covered that issue. It doesn't affect us. That's in my words. All right. Okay. One other thing on the front on the front portico, Mr. Bruno, are there other porticos near this particular dwelling?
Just the ones that I was able to photograph, and as I said, the one that's closest in size and scale would be what I showed in photograph number 5.
All right. So on the street there are others, and we're not introducing anything new. Is that a safe statement?
Well, the others that I was able to photograph, you have before you this evening, and I just offered them as other examples of those within the neighborhood, within the immediate vicinity. I didn't see much value in going to the, going a block up, because it wouldn't have.
No, I don't. Okay, I'm fine. So, Mr. Chairman, if you're ready, if there are no other comments, we can attempt to put a motion together.
Well, I think we're.
That's right. We're gonna go to public. No,
we're gonna go to pub.
Yeah.
We've got to go to public. Just one question for Mr. Bruno.
Sure.
Could you just? I apologize if I missed this, but could you just state what the materials are that are going to be used for the porch and the patio?
Yeah, the patio would be would probably be stone slabs of some sort, blue stone or any other stone that the owner would choose. The portico roof and the skirt roof would be standing seam metal, and then the columns would be would be a precast, there'd be an interior structural column, and then the exterior, the exposed portion of the column would be would be a synthetic, as I show, with like a recessed panels, and likely painted. I believe the trim on the house is white. Nimesh?
Beige.
Oh, it's beige. Okay, so the columns would be beige to match the rest of the trim on the house.
Okay, and the patio, I'm sorry.
The patio would be stone slabs, either a bluestone or I believe a crab apple it's called. But it would be stone slabs. I'm not a huge advocate of pavers in this climate because they move too much, especially with freeze thaw in the wintertime.
Okay. Thanks, sir. All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion to open to the public, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. There's a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Boland. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, there be none. We're now open to the public for comment on this application alone. Ms. Steinle, do we have anybody in the public this evening?
Yes, there are 2 members of the public here. So if you're interested in commenting or have any questions on this application, please raise your hand now. All right, it doesn't look like we have any interest.
Okay, that being the case, I'll take a motion to close to the public, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Boland. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? All right, at this time, we are now closed to the public for comment on this application. Any further questions from the board regarding the application? Okay, this time I will look for a motion on the application, please.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I guess I'll volunteer as usual.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Regarding the application of Nimesh Patel, 315 Van Sorn Drive, block 1106, lot 6. They make a motion that the board approve the proposed portico and rear raised patio variances as follows. Let me try to put these together. We have one for here we go. Maximum lot coverage. The existing lot coverage is 37.3, and the proposed is 38.12, if I believe. That's one of them. The other one was the improvements on the lot coverage on the I'm looking at number 4 here. The increase in proposed lot coverage to 29.85% is another one. And the maximum potential lot coverage of, no, I just mentioned that. All right. Now we need a variance, I believe, for the combined side yard, which is a non-conforming use right now, an existing non-conformity, if I recall. And we need one to accept the raised patio. In any language for that? I'm not sure of that one. Let the motion also show that the applicant will work with Mr. Costa on a soil movement permit and see if there's any further drainage required. Now, I feel like I missed something, so you folks are gonna have to fill in the blanks.
The front yard setback, and
Oh,
there's,
that's correct, yes.
and there's also, is there a single side yard setback variance as well, the 5.8 feet? Or is that eliminated when the patio is pushed back?
No,
It's-
the 5.8 is existing on the east side of the house. We cannot do anything about that one.
All right, that will remain then, okay.
Right.
Right. But one correction though, I think the coverage needs to change because we've removed the extension around the patio, so the total increase in coverage would be 50 square feet for the portico. Correct?
Mr. Correa, you are correct. You're gonna, and just for the record, just to clarify, if I can through the chair, you're gonna remove the step that's going into the side yard on the right side of the house, correct? So I don't know, that's a 1 foot step. What is that distance? Because it's
Well-
not dimensional.
13 feet, 6 inches.
Right, but we're gonna take it off of that and the back. So you're gonna pull the patio inside so that the steps are flush with the perimeter of the house.
Is that what you want? Again, is that what you want to do? Or I don't know if, the only thing I'm gonna say to you, if you make that too small, if you're gonna put a table out there, good luck, because you're gonna be hanging off the edge. So you guys, that's the only thing I would suggest.
I do like to keep the patio at the same level as the existing patio is, because it does perfectly line up. That's exactly what I would like. So I do not need to go and encroach more space than what the existing patio space is.
So maybe just make a small step to get into the backyard to get back to grade
Exactly.
instead of having.
That's right. That's perfectly fine.
Right, because what's going past the existing building wall is not the patio itself, it's the step that comes down off of it.
Yeah, I'm saying, but instead of having to step the entire perimeter, you're removing it on the side yard, correct?
Yeah, we can remove the one on the side yard and just bring the grade up on the side, but still have the one going to the backyard.
Well, we talked about the grade. We're not forget, you said you weren't changing the grade to impact the neighbors. So if you forget.
Right,
that-
oh, I thought you just suggested for us to do that, sorry about that.
No. I'm saying if you remove the step, you're gonna have a raised patio, whatever finishes on the side. To get from the patio to the backyard to grade. Just one step.
It's just one tread, right?
4 foot wide, 5 foot wide. I mean, are you gonna put a railing on top of the raised patio or?
No, we don't need to
It's not
because
that.
it's only a maximum of 16 inches above the adjacent grade, so we don't need to.
I don't want to tell any more stories tonight, but a good friend of mine built a raised patio and now he has planters on top because people continue to fall off it. So now there's planters so that people don't fall off. But
Well, that's why we had the tread, that's why we had the step tread around it, so we would avoid that fate. But this I'm actually at 22.8,
So we're just
21.
removing the step tread on into that encroaches into the side yard, that's all.
Correct, and we will address the safety issue with Mr. Patel.
So you're down to 70, use whole numbers, 75 square feet additional, between 50 for the front and the patio in the back. 50 square feet additional, I'm sorry, 74.2, 75.
75, we'll call it, yeah. I can't do the math that finely, so we'll do 75.
That will further decrease that.
That's the increase, yeah.
Chairman and the board, I apologize for chiming in.
It's okay, Mr. Costa. Ms. Steinle, maybe if you wouldn't mind, maybe recap what the motion was on.
Yes, so a motion to approve with the variances as follows: maximum improved lot coverage to increase by 75 square feet, maximum lot coverage to increase to 29.85%. That's still accurate. A side yard setback to remain and a front yard setback of 25.7 feet. And combined side yard setback of 13.7.
Right, all right.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second for that, please?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boland.
All right, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes,
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Councilman Kinigo,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Bastide.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
great.
Thank you very much for your time.
Enjoy your patio.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. All right, good night.
Good
Good
night.
Night.
Okay, with that, we are through the agenda for this evening, unless the board has anything further. Okay,
We did that within the curfew.
we did. All right. So with that, I will, if no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry, I don't want to prolong the meeting, but didn't we have a borough ordinance that we had to review on lead paint inspections?
No.
No, I think that's the next, I think that's on the next meeting,
November.
the agenda for the
Next
next
meeting,
meeting.
okay. I am just a quick, I know we're gonna talk about it in November, but reading it over, most towns are training their inspectors to do these inspections. And they're charging between $200 and $250 to do the inspection on the visual inspection. And I see that the borough, if they have to do it, they're gonna charge $500. I would like our representatives go back and rediscuss that, because that $500 seems kind of punitive to a landlord that's just renting an existing apartment. Just my opinion here, as a realtor, of course. I've been through these inspections many times, including in River Edge. Before the ordinance gets passed, the people just hired their own, which I see there is an option to do that. But a lot of towns now have opted to send their building inspector to take care of it, and are collecting the $200 or $250 fee on the visual inspections. That's all I have for now.
I can look into other towns' fees and find out if the borough has there's a reason behind the fee. I'm sure there's some sort of reason why that number was chosen.
Just to be clear,
Again, the other towns that have had their inspectors trained to do this, and it's typically a visual inspection. They do charge between $200 and $250. I thought the $500 and so forth for a visual inspection is kind of on the high side. That's all.
just to confirm, this inspection is for CO or for zoning compliance?
So, yeah, so just to give you a little background, about almost 2 years ago now, the state of New Jersey enacted a lead paint law that requires all owners of single, two-family, or multifamily apartments to have a lead-based paint inspection prior to a CO being issued by the borough. The reason there's been a delay in a lot of towns, including the borough of River Edge, is that the state enacted the law, and as typical with the state, they didn't happen to tell the towns that they had to do this. So now that every town is playing catch up, and it's not just River Edge. I've been dealing with this a lot as being on the board of directors for the Board of Realtors here in Bergen County. So that's the background of it. Now the boroughs have to, the towns that don't have the ordinance have to enact these ordinances. Most towns, especially small towns like River Edge, that don't have a lot of rentals, or the rentals are small, they opt for what's called the visual inspection. The inspector is certified by the DEP to come in. They look around. If they see any chip paint, that has to be remediated. And this is because of issues really not so much up in this area, but more centrally located in the bigger cities in New Jersey that have apartments that aren't very well taken care of. So this ordinance has to be enacted. The borough is taking the right approach in enacting it. The only thing I saw that kind of stood out to me was the fee if the borough has to do the inspection, charging $500. Again, most towns are in the $200 to $250 range. Marie and I can certainly guide you into some of the towns that have this ordinance already, so you could look at it as well. I'm sure the borough attorney is aware of the different towns. I'm sure he's researched it as well. Everything else looked good on it except for if the borough has to do it, and the borough should take it upon themselves to send a guy out, one of our inspectors out to get certified so they can do this inspection. That's all I got.
Okay, all right, so we'll pick up the discussion on the ordinance at the next meeting as well. Okay. If nothing further, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
And Tom, if you want to have the borough attorney call me or Daria, I'd be happy to speak to him about it as well.
Okay, but I think what we'll do is allow the process to fulfill, let Marina, Miss Dinley to reach out and then advise back. And certainly Councilman Kanigo and I will have a conversation with our business administrator who recommended this. It's our recollection that she did research this, but we will certainly have an informal conversation in parallel with what Ms. Dinley is going to do.
All right.
Okay,
All right.
I'll make that motion.
thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Is there a second?
Second.
I think I got Mr. Cray as a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Night, everybody.
All right.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good
Stand
night.
adjourned at
Good night.
9:08. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.